Welcome to Securing America with me, Frank Gaffney, the program that's a kind of owner's manual for protecting the country we love against all enemies, foreign and domestic, to God's glory and that of his kingdom. A man who has done that job of protecting our country against all enemies, foreign and domestic, in a whole variety of capacities is our first guest. He is Congressman Scott Perry, also now a retired brigadier general in the United States Army National Guard. He has been serving in the Congress for a number of years, representing with great distinction the people of the 10th District of Pennsylvania. He's a good friend as well as a valued leader of the House Freedom Caucus, also a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee and Transportation Committees. Congressman, it's so good to have you with us. Thank you very much for taking the time to do so.
Great to be with you, Frank. Thanks for the opportunity and the wonderful introduction.
The introduction is only as wonderful as is your record, and I'm very pleased to be able to present, as always, your, important thoughts on what's going on at the moment. We have a very limited amount of time, so I wanted to focus in on a subject that I think is near and dear to your heart, and I know to mine, and that is we have been, mostly unwittingly, by the millions, American investors putting money into Chinese Communist Party controlled, or in some cases simply owned, companies. We've been doing so to the effect of building up our mortal enemy. There is now a move afoot to reverse something that President Trump did just about 2 years ago, as you know, with your help, which was to ensure that at the minimum, people like you, Congressman, military personnel or former military personnel or civilian government employees for that matter, do not have their monies invested through the Thrift Savings Plan into Chinese corporations, some of them sanctioned by our government. Others of them owned and operated by the Chinese Communist Party's military, building weapon systems with which to kill people like yourself in uniform, or the rest of us for that matter. I'd ask you whether you agree with Senators Rubio, Tuberville, and Cotton, and a great many of the rest of us, including our Committee on the Present Danger of China, that this is a totally unacceptable step by the Thrift Savings Plan's board.
As when you serve in uniform, that's when you save as you serve in uniform, that's your retirement, the Thrift Savings Plan, and of course you're duty bound to put a portion of your paycheck there, and knowing that that would be funding the Communist Party of China and their weapons construction. You literally couldn't write a book about this. No one would believe it. It would be so fantastical to believe that someone would do that. But yet, and as you know, Frank, it was a struggle under the last administration. Not that it was a struggle for President Trump, mind you, but it was the cultured class, the elite class in Washington, D.C., that doesn't care if it makes money off the Communist Party of China, and using that to the United States of America, to our own demise. They don't care as long as they're making money. And so while President Trump was fine to decouple, so to speak, or to make sure that the Thrift Savings Plan never went to invest in Communist China, Communist Party of China, some of the people around him in charge of that whole operation fought tooth and nail. And now, of course, without him in office, they're right there at the trough, ready to use the savings of people that have signed, a contract to give the last full measure, if necessary, and to use their money to help the Communist Party of China, literally, while the same party calls the United States of America their enemy.
It's stunning, is the only word that I can use, that we're seeing this whole effort reprised by the Thrift Savings Plans Board. They call it the Federal Retirement Thrift Investment Board, formally. They were told in no uncertain terms by President Trump not to do it. President Biden surprisingly, issued an executive order back, I believe, in June of last year, saying, he didn't think we should have any Americans investing in Chinese companies, particularly those that are, militarily tied or involved in surveillance or other human rights abuses in China. Congressman, this seems to be part of a larger problem, and both based on your military experience and, of course, your time as a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, you're very versed in this phenomenon. It's called elite capture. What is that about, and how significant a danger is it beyond this particular problem?
Well, elite capture is one of the many methods in what's called unrestricted warfare that the Chinese Communist Party uses to vanquish its adversaries or its enemies. And so they look at everything. Everything's on the table and considered warfare for them. And so in the process of elite capture, what they seek to do is compromise individuals that are in a position to make decisions, policy decisions in the country in question. And of course, that country is the United States of America. So once they compromise these individuals, then these individuals start doing the work of the Communist Chinese Party as opposed to the work of the United States of America in this case. And what they would like to do is have the Americans invest in the Communist Party of China's war production machine and defense apparatus, and they would like to have Americans on the boards of these, and that would be the elite capture, the Americans on the board doing the bidding of the Communist Party of China. And that's exactly what we're potentially seeing here. I mean, it's, of course, no one wants to say that they've been captured by the Communist Party of China to do their bidding, but why else would they do it? Of course, it's for profits, but it's not necessarily only for the profits of the individuals that are involved, but the profits of the Communist Party of China. And you wouldn't have financially supported our enemies in World War II, but yet we're doing it right here in the 21st century, or we're planning to.
One of the things that is a manifestation of this larger problem, as you know, is the Chinese have essentially ordered companies doing business with them, including many prominent firms on Wall Street, to interpose directly their opposition to legislation, including some I know you've been involved with, trying to, disengage our country from China, from supply chains that are recklessly creating vulnerabilities for us, including military ones, but also for our civilian economy and people. When you listen to people talking about this, Peter Schweitzer, as you know, has done a terrific book called Red-Handed, documenting the extent of this. And you look around the halls of the Congress and you see people who are willing to play ball with these old friends of China. And they're, lobbying, as it happens, on behalf of the Chinese Communist Party. What do you say to such colleagues and members of Congress? Is there anything that might cause them to rethink what they're doing?
Well, unfortunately, as you know, Frank, there's a lot of folks in Washington, D.C., and the legislative branch particularly, but no exception there. The executive branch is right on board, too, that like to talk tough about China. But when it comes to doing anything, they're really not interested because they're involved. Their investment portfolio is involved. They're making money. And so they like to talk tough, but they really don't want to do anything that's meaningful in this regard. And of course, the Chinese are smart. They don't want to have to register their as agents of China working in the United States government. So what they seek to do is get Americans that work in the American government to just do their bidding by convincing them that China's not a problem. China just wants to help out the rest of the world. The Communist Party is good, and we should invest in them because it's good for us. And that's really their goal. And quite honestly, it's worked pretty effectively over the last at least 2 decades.
It certainly has. And a prime example of it, and just a very quick response on this, if you would, sir, is the extent to which we are witnessing with the revelations now coming out of Hunter Biden's laptop that the president of the United States himself think going back to the time when he was a senator, certainly when he was a vice president, has been deeply compromised. You've served under various commanders in chief. What does it mean, as you see it, for our military to have someone compromised in that role today?
Well, of course, Frank, as you described, of course, it would be the highest of elite capture, right? To have the president of the United States, essentially, the allegation would be, and this is from Hunter Biden's laptop, doing the bidding of the Communist Party of China. Meanwhile, taking an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States. Of course, they're antithetical, and as members of the uniformed services across the board, we take orders for the president of the United States, and there absolutely can be no compromise. But quite honestly, Frank, there can be no question of compromise.
Congressman Scott Perry, we have to leave it at that. Thank you very much for your time today and for your great leadership in the Congress, as well as in your previous role as a brigadier general in the United States Army National Guard. God bless you, sir. Come back to us soon, if you would, with updates. Next up, we're going to speak with John Mills, Colonel, United States Army, retired.